So my dad was a pastor of a church, and I remember one Sunday evening after church, we had Sunday night service, and we came home from service. I was about maybe 8 years old. My sister was just born. She was a baby, and we all went to bed that night. Monday was going to be school, and when we went to bed around 1 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, and I remember this through the eyes of an 8-year-old, 7-year-old, a young child. I remember waking up, and my mom and dad and everybody's going hysterical in the house because at the front door there were men trying to break in, and all I kept hearing from the outside was, "Preacher man, bring out the money, we know you're in there," you know. And it kept beating on the door, "Bring out the money, preacher man." We were looking outside. It was a real panic situation. We were looking outside. One of the neighbors opened his window, and you heard the gunshot, pow, pow, and chased the neighbor back in. And you know, it was real scary. So neighbors were trying to help but couldn't help because these men were armed. They were on the front door. They were beating the door. And my dad got this idea. He gets this idea. He says, you know, while they ganged up in the front, he was going to grab the family and try to escape through the back door and make a run for it. So my mom had my sister in her hand. My dad had me in his hands, two brothers holding on, and we start coming down the stairs. When we come down the stairs, there was a guy standing right there in the back. He was about 5 feet away, and he said, "Preacher, where you think you're going?" And then he begun to let shots off. Now he was about 5 feet away, and he just let them off. He started letting rounds off. I mean, this man, I mean, he was clapping that gun, boy. He was like, bow, 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 bow. And he stopped and he said, "Preacher, where you going?" And he started clapping the gun, squeezing the trigger. I promise you, not one shot hit any of us. My dad was like, "Turn around, run back upstairs." So we started jetting back upstairs. Now, the crazy thing is, they eventually got into the house. They thought that because my dad was a preacher, he had all the church money in the house. So they ran through the house looking for money. They couldn't find anything. And we were strict Pentecostals back then, so they asked for jewelry, but back then the church didn't believe in really wearing jewelry, so we didn't have any of that. So all they ended up really taking was my mom's wedding ring. They tried to take my dad's off, but his couldn't come off, so they threatened to break his finger off. And one thing led to another, and eventually they ran. I believe police or whatever started coming. They fled. The next morning, though, this is when it hit me through the mind of a child. I looked around and I saw all the ricochets of the bullets in the ceiling and all around us. And not one bullet hurt me or any of my family members. And I thought to myself, as a young child, that God protected me that night. And He kept me alive for a reason. And so that has a lot of impact on my life, because there's a message that I preach that is called "Live Like Somebody Saved You." And what I mean by that is simply this: if you were supposed to die or could have died and somebody saved you from dying, how would you live beyond that point to repay the person who saved you? And every day I know God saved me physically, and I know He saved me spiritually. And now I live as though somebody saved me. That was one of my most crazy experiences that I remember in Guyana.